Welcome to another episode of Dynamic Diecasters, where this week we're going to continue our Star Trek The Next Generation Enterprise build, with this episode being stages 35 through 38 of the build. So when we come back from our one of our other fabulous intros, we'll go ahead and get started with the build. Welcome back. Like I said before the break, we're going to go ahead and work on stages 35 through 38 of the build. We're going to basically be continuing putting together deck panels for the majority of this stage and assembling parts of the saucer, but for the most part it's going to be a lot of assembling deck panels again. So that's going to be a common thread, I think, in this model build for the most part, because that's what makes up the vast majority of the model, to be all honest. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started with stage 35. I'll go through the parts and I'll go ahead and work on the build and show you what we did when I complete. These take a good amount of time, so they will be time-lapsed, but let's go through the parts and then we'll go from there. I know it's been a hot minute since I've actually done an Enterprise build, I think it's been a good couple of months since the last episode on the channel. So, but hopefully, I mean, if anybody watched the last episode, I think we've been putting together a lot of panels, but not attaching them to the saucer. So I'm hoping at some point we start attaching them during one of these stages to the saucer, so at least it looks like we're making some progress on it. With that being said, we'll go ahead and get started going through the parts. The first part is the deck panel U201, which is a metal panel, and it's right here. Then the next one we've got escape pod covers. We've got 4 of them right here. Then we've got clear windows, we've got 5 of those, and then we've got 5 dark windows. Then next we've got the right ventral neck panel. And then lastly we've got deck panel lights. And then of course we've got screws. So we've got 6 BM screws, we've got 4 EM screws, we've got 2 BP screws, and then 4 DP screws, and there's spares in there at the same time. So with that, I'll go ahead and get started with the build, and when we come back, I'll show you what we did. See you in a few. And that's it for stage 35. There was actually quite a bit we actually did, and as you can see, the saucer's in front of me. So we did actually start installing saucer deck panels onto the saucer. But the first thing we did, if you remember, we got the ventral panel, this side of the panel. The only thing we did with it though is we installed the switch onto it. So now the switch is actually part of the unit instead of being just hanging there. So that was the first part of the build, and then we put together the L-shaped panel here, and then we installed this panel here at the very beginning. So this is what we did as part of stage 35. We put together this panel right here, and then we installed it. And then we took 2 panels from the previous stages and we put them together and then installed them here. So that was all we did for stage 35. Now we'll go ahead and move on to stage 36, where it'll be a lot of the same. We'll go through the parts, but it looks like we'll be putting a panel together. And then I'm not sure if we'll be installing any panels onto the saucer in this stage. There's only a few screws. There's not as many as last time, so I would venture to say we probably are just installing the lights onto this panel itself, but until I go through the build, I won't know. But we'll go ahead and go through the parts for this stage, and then, well, there's more screws down here, so we might be in luck in terms of doing more installations. So anyhow, yeah, there's a lot more screws. So let's see, I'll set this off to the side for now. So for stage 36, the first thing we've got deck panel U101, which is this one right here. And that's another metal panel. Then we've got the reflector panel for it. So like I said, we're gonna at least install lights onto that panel, as well as, you know, there's 10 clear windows and 10 dark windows with this stage. And then we've got a transporter emitter pad, which I think we've done one of those before. It's this little beige looking piece. We put one on there before, but essentially it'll go right here on this deck panel. And then we've got the right ventral neck reflector panel, which is this piece right here. And we've got a docking alignment light, which is a little tiny LED bulb looking thing right here with like green edges. So I'll make sure not to misplace that. Then we've got two deck panel lights, which are these right here, these two little cables. Then we've got two stickers here. And lastly, we've got the screws. So we've got 3 BM screws, we've got 4 DM screws, and then we've got 4 AP screws. So when we come back, I'll go ahead and go through the build, and when we come back, I'll show you what we did. Again, see you in a few more minutes. That was it for stage 36. There wasn't a whole lot to the stage, except, it took me quite a bit because there was an issue with the battle section that I had to fix. But essentially what we did at the beginning was we attached this portion of the battle station neck to the battle station itself and plugged it into the PCB board. So now it's not off the board, it's attached. I think we had to do some other stuff on the other end too, but at this point now you see the switch. If you could see it, it's actually within the board now, and we can just plug it in or turn it on and off. So this is what it looks like lit up and built at this point of the build. So this is the docking light that we put in this stage, and this was the earlier one, the red one from before. So that's it for the battle station. At this point, I think the next stage we deal with the top portion of that neck, and then the other portion that we did, which I'll show you too, is we put all the windows and the transporter panel on this deck panel and installed the lighting. And one thing I didn't do in the previous stage is I didn't show you, once we had them plugged in, them lit up. So I'll do that here, so you see that the lights are working currently. This is what it looks like lit up. I'll go ahead and I can do the thing for the previous stage showing it, but we kind of did them as we were building it. But I'll go ahead and I'll plug all of these in so you guys can see the progress of the lighting of this portion that we worked in the previous stage. So I did not show you that before, but I'll show you now. So that section that we built, as you can see, it's lit up down there. So it's all good at this point of the build so far. I haven't had any LED wiring issues currently, knock on wood. So at this point of the build, everything's lighting up like it should, and I've got everything installed properly. So, but yeah, we also didn't do anything with that deck panel. So we'll go ahead and move on to stage 37 now. And again, it's going to be another build of a deck panel, and like I was mentioning before, it looks like we're going to be dealing with the top portion of the battle station on the other side, kind of like what we did before. A lot more windows in this stage. Once we go through the parts, you'll see what I'm talking about. But this is the biggest pain about this build, is just the amount of detail with the windows and the escape pods for each deck panel. And it varies based on the deck panel, obviously, but some of them have a ton of windows, and if you've seen if you've watched the time lapse, they're very small, and I have to work them with tweezers. And just like, so when there's like 20 of them, that's what takes the vast majority of the time in the build, is just that portion of the detail part with the windows. So first part is U313 deck panel. So that's this one. This one's actually plastic this time, and it looks like, well, that's the deck panel. The reflector panel was attached to it. But this is the deck panel for the panel, or the reflector panel for the deck panel. And then we've got one deck panel light, so you can envision where that goes. Then we've got 6 escape pod covers. We've got 20 clear windows, and then 20 dark windows. So like I said, they're giving me 40 windows, but of course I don't install every single one of them, but as you can see with all the little tiny holes on this, it's gonna be a good amount regardless. So that'll be what takes the majority of the time. And then we've got the right neck panel like I was talking about before. And then finally we've got screws. We've got three BP screws, and then we've got 2 DP screws. So it looks like, again, we're probably not installing any panels on the saucer in this stage. I don't see that being the case with only 5 screws. But I could be wrong, but I'll be surprised if we do that. But with that being said, I'll go ahead and get started on this build, and I'll show you what it looks like when we get done with this stage. See you in a few more minutes. And that was it for stage 37. That stage didn't actually take very long at all. We put together the deck panel, which I thought would take longer than it did, and then we didn't do anything with the neck piece. We just got it in the part of the build. However, so we did though attach, which I'll have to fix that. It looks like wire popped through that I'll have to pull back, but maybe I can do it from here. No, I'll have to fix that. But we installed this deck panel here. And what we're left with is stage 38, and it looks like it's gonna be, looks like we might get a reflector panel for the neck piece. But it looks like, again, it's gonna be another deck panel assembly. which again, we're going to see a lot of these until we get done with that. But at this point, we're not even, you know, done with the top part of the saucer. We still got the bottom part left. So it's going to be a continuous. Most of these episodes will probably encompass me assembling deck panels. But we'll go through these parts, and then this will be the last stage of the build for this episode. So once we get done with this stage, I'll show you what we did, and then we'll conclude this episode for this week. So for the first piece is going to be the deck panel U314, which is this one right here. Then we've got the reflector panel for it, which is this right here. We've got deck panel lights, so it's going to be this cable right here. Then we've got 5 escape pod covers. Then we've got 20 clear windows again. And then 15 dark windows. And then we've got the right neck front windows. That's what I was saying that I figured this was. It's the right neck front windows for the neck. And then we've got 3 cable ties. So we're obviously probably going to be routing cables and maybe plugging into the PCB board in this stage too, because that was the last time I had to use cable ties, was when I was doing that. And then lastly, there's 3 BP screws and then 6 DP screws. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started on this stage of the build, and when we come back, I'll show you what we did and we'll conclude the episode. See you in a few more. And that's it for stage 38. So that's the final stage of the build today. We did actually install a few panels that we had put together in previous stages. So that's a good vast majority of what we did in this stage. We put together, I believe it was this one right here. And then we installed 2 additional ones from previous stages in this stage. So now we've got, you know, more inner workings, or more of the saucer coming together finally. So if you remember, what we did today was we completed this part of the battle station. So we installed the switch in this section and then wired up the additional wire that was in there. We also put together this deck panel, but we did not install it. We installed a bunch of panels. We installed these 2 up here, and then I think all of these right here were installed today. And then the last thing we did in stage 38 was we got this piece in 37, and then all we did was install the windows right here into this part of the neck. So that's pretty much it for this week's episode of Dynamic Diecasters. The next episode, I believe it'll be a Ghostbusters build. It might be a DeLorean. So expect it'll either be the Ecto-1 or the DeLorean. And if it's the Ecto-1, it might be the modification episode, or the next modification episode that I do. I'll have to look at that and see if it's the right stage for that portion of the modifications. But if any of you guys know that follow model building, Eaglemoss went bankrupt, but there's rumors that another company will pick them up. So the models will continue. So I'll continue building all of these models that came from Eaglemoss in the hopes that another company starts distributing the rest of the kits that I have not received for them, because received a few more for the Enterprise that I've got yet to put on here, and then I've also got a few more Ecto 1 boxes, and then I think a couple of DeLoreans. But in the offset that I run out of those in the interim, I'm gonna be starting the Titanic build. I was originally going to do the Eaglemoss one, but I moved on from doing Eaglemoss, and I'm going to be doing the Agora Models version of the Titanic, so that'll be coming to the channel. And then I'll also be starting the Knight Rider build at some point here shortly as well. So, and then obviously I've got a bunch, I'll be able to complete the X-Wing that you've seen on the channel too. So there will still be content coming. It just might be delayed in some of the what were Eaglemoss builds previously. But if you guys like what you're watching and you guys have not subscribed to the channel yet, go ahead and do that, and like the video, and then hit that bell so you get notified when I put these out. Typically I put a video out every Friday. I'll have unboxing day videos intermingled in between there, so I can stretch out just the content with the delays in regards to the models. But like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and for all of us at the Heart of Geek, I hope you have a good one, and I'll see you in the next.